Curtis Calhoun here with MMA News, and my next guest you recognize from the UFC, Chad Mendes, getting ready to return at a upcoming BKFC event. How's it going, Chad?
It's going, man. How about you guys?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks again for the time. Really do appreciate it. First things first, man. Just a few weeks away from your bare knuckle fighting return. Obviously, it's been a crazy journey making this transition. How pumped are you to get back in there on the 29th?
Man, I'm extremely excited. This is definitely a fight that got my wheels turning and got me super stoked for. I wasn't 100% sure if I was going to come back and do this. Obviously, had a ton of fun in that first one, but it was still kind of up in the air. And then as soon as they mentioned signing Eddie, I said, send me the contract. So, this is definitely a fight that it gets me excited to train and motivates me. I've obviously been following this guy in the sport for a long time. So, I think it's going to be awesome. Two top level guys that they're in both their divisions finally meeting up. And, I think this is going to be a definitely a fight that the fans want to watch, and probably one that I'm going to be watching on repeat after. So I'm pumped for it.
I was about to ask you about that because I feel like, especially at this point in your career, it's all about those big name value guys, right? In terms of those guys that get you extra motivated to go in the gym and get you extra pumped up. I guess as a veteran of the fight game, like how important is that to, have that big dance partner and that guy that can get you motivated to go into the gym?
Yeah, man, I think at this point in my career, it's huge having that, I think the main excitement that first go round was just because it's something new, going from mixed martial arts to bare knuckle, not so much the opponent, but this one's definitely a mix of both. The fact that it's still something new, I've only done it once, but it's also a top level guy like this. So it definitely motivates me a lot more getting there and just training, pushing. It's also nice getting probably my biggest payday to date. So that's a nice little sprinkle on top. So yeah, man, this is definitely something that excites me and motivates me. And like I said, when they mentioned it, I wanted to sign that contract immediately. So and I'm pretty sure Eddie was the same way. So it's pretty cool just having, a sport like this to where two guys like that probably would never have fought in the UFC can now meet up and face each other. So I think this is going to be awesome for the fans.
And how big has it been in terms of structuring your camp, not having to deal with, the wear and tear with grappling and jiu-jitsu, wrestling and all that, and kind of just focus on, boxing, strength and conditioning, stuff like that?
Well, it has been night and day. Like, I absolutely love this. I think a lot of my teammates are starting to get a little bit jealous, honestly. Like, everyone always makes comments, but it's nice to come in and just do a solid boxing workout. And then, jump straight into a strength and conditioning workout, sit in the sauna, we're, over a 3 to 4 hour period and be done for the day instead of having to go to a pro practice in the morning, doing full MMA, an hour, eat something and then get back in there, do strength and conditioning, eat something, come back and do, jujitsu and then, or wrestling and mixing all the boxing and all that stuff in there too. You get in 2 to 3 workouts a day, 4 or 5 weeks in, I'd be so burnt out, man. I feel fresh, knock on wood, injury free. Just, you get in there, you do your work. It's for me, it still feels like something new because I've been a wrestler my whole life, even though I've been doing it for over 10 years now, so it's still exciting in that sense. And for me, I just enjoy it, man. It's definitely less demanding on the body as far as the grappling and, tearing on ligaments and tendons and straining muscles. And, not that you don't get that boxing being explosive and stuff, but man, I notice it's way less. So yeah, man, I love being able to just focus on pretty much one thing and just going full bore on it for sure.
I want to touch briefly on your Bare Knuckle FC debut. Like, what were some of the takeaways you took from that experience? Obviously, you mentioned like a new challenge, new exciting challenge to get in there and fight Bare Knuckle. I guess talk to me a little bit about that. Like, what did you take away? What did you learn?
Yeah, there was a couple things. I think one of the biggest things was the ring size. I'd actually before that never even seen one. My coach had cornered a couple other fights from one of our other guys that had done it, and he's like, "Yeah, so we have like an octagon upstairs that we basically do all of our training in, but it's a tiny one. It's like super small." So in my mind, I was like, let's just do all of our training, all our sparring, mid sessions, everything in that, so that when I get in the bare knuckle ring, it'll seem bigger. Well, I'm glad I did that, because when I got in there that night before the fight and actually stood in the ring to like just see what it felt like, it's that same size or maybe even smaller. So I was like, holy shit, like good thing we trained. So you have no choice but to be in each other's face the whole time, which I think is what's so exciting about this sport. So towing the line and just being right there in the danger zone the whole time, it's that part of it is definitely different than the UFC, starting to cross and like keeping your distance and being able to like dictate when you want to close the distance and stuff. It's a lot harder in there with that. So I do feel like I have a bit of the advantage, in that sense, because he's never stepped in there, has never felt it. I think that's a huge difference. Just, when you have so much room and you can kind of use footwork and get in and out and, pick and choose, completely different story than just in the face the whole time. And I think that's why Mike Perry's been so lethal at this sport. I mean, as soon as that bell rings, he's just like in guys' faces and overwhelming them. So I do think I have the advantage there, but man, I think that's probably the biggest takeaway that I'd noticed. That, and obviously your hands hurt. It hurts hitting and hurts getting hit. So you got to kind of pick and choose. I don't feel like I did a really good job that first fight. Obviously, it was something we talked about, really, not throwing 100% on every punch, but man, I feel like that like Mike Tyson mindset just kicked in when I got in there, and it was just wanting to kill. So it's definitely something I'm focusing on a lot more this camp. So we'll see. It's definitely different when you have someone standing right in front of you versus your coaches or even sparring partners. So we'll see, man. I'm excited. I feel great. This is probably one of the best camps I've ever had in my entire life, and I'm excited to get in there and prove myself against a guy like Eddie.
No doubt about it. And I got to ask you too, like when you were making that transition from MMA to bare knuckle boxing, like did you talk to a bunch of bare knuckle fighters about what the experience is like, differences, structuring your camp, all that stuff?
Yeah, so one of our guys, Eddie Hoke, had already fought, I think, twice before I fought my first one. So I was really picking his brain, like, what does it feel like? And he had a ton of insight, which helped me, I think. But until you actually get in there and you're standing in there, like you don't really know what it feels like, or there's really no way to know. So it's definitely different. But yeah, Eddie was definitely giving us some pointers and stuff. I think toughening the hands up is huge. I've been doing a lot of mitt work, bare knuckle. You do bag work, bare knuckle, try to toughen up that skin, because honestly, when you start sweating, that outer skin even just gets pretty soft and you could tear your knuckles. So yeah, there's a lot that kind of goes into that part of it, but yeah, and it's a different beast altogether for sure.
What advice would you give to a guy like Luke Rockhold, who's getting ready to make that leap into the bare knuckle ring?
Yeah, I think he's doing, at least what I'm seeing on his social media, he's doing a lot of bare knuckle stuff. I see him hitting the bags bare knuckle, hitting mitts bare knuckle. Obviously, it looks like he's using his range. He has long arms. He's good with, keeping that distance. Man, I mean, like I said, Mike Perry is a different beast in there. It seems like that's his home. He loves this shit more than anything. So I'm excited to see how that fight plays out. Is Luke gonna be able to pick him apart with those quick power long punches, or is Mike going to get in his face and just overwhelm him? I don't know.
Gotcha, man. And I got to ask you too, like another benefit of fighting bare knuckle, and specifically with this fight, is you don't have to deal with so much of a weight cut down to 145 pounds, right? So that's got to be a huge advantage in your camp. What are your thoughts on weight cutting in combat sports? Because I feel like a veteran of the fight game like yourself, has a lot to say in terms of, what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, all that.
Yeah, man, weight cutting is always a tricky thing. I started cutting weight my sophomore year in high school, so it's been a long life of it for me. I don't like it. It's not really my favorite. So Eddie asked if we go up to 165, is it something that we can do? And obviously, right off the bat, I'm like, sure, dude. And like, I know he hasn't fought in 2 years, or it'll be 2 years, I think, right whenever we fight. And I'm sure he's probably pretty big. So I'm walking around probably 175, getting down below that during training and stuff. So it's not going to be much of a cut for me, but, I'm going to feel good. I'm going to feel, fresh, sharp, obviously be well hydrated, not have to deplete myself very much at all throughout the week. And I'll be feeling good. So, yeah, man. So there's so much that can go wrong in the weight cutting world. I mean, you see fighters that, and I've done this myself, cutting too much weight. I mean, you're probably at 30-40% of what your best is. And it's like, why do we do that to ourselves? We get this like weird mindset, like, oh, if I cut 30 pounds, I'm going to be so much bigger and stronger and better than this guy. When in all actuality, most of the time you cut down and, like I said, you're at 30-40%. You're, either now level with this guy or he's better than you because you can't keep up cardio wise. Like for me, it would drain my cardio more than anything, just dehydrating, depleting. I'm more of an explosive athlete. I rely on a lot of glycogen stores in my muscle. And, when you're depleting all that for a week or two at a time, it's hard to keep up with that when you're actually in there letting them rip. So, yeah, man, I think, like I said, there are a lot of things that can go wrong in the weight cutting world. And if you do too much or if you do it wrong, it's going to hurt you no matter what.
Few more questions for me, man. Once again, I really do appreciate the time. I got to ask you about one of your teammates, Maycee Barber. Obviously, just picked up a big win in the UFC, getting a lot of hype. Obviously, one of the top prospects in the game right now. I guess give us some insight into what she's like in the gym and what her potential is.
And Maycee is a super hard worker. I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen Maycee get tired. And I know that that's something we kind of joke about in the gym. Like she just goes and goes and goes. And I mean, she cracks. Like watching her hit mitts, she's fast, explosive, and powerful. And, I feel like that's pretty cool to see in a lot of these female fighters. You're starting to see it more and more, but she's definitely one of those types of women that I would not want to get punched in the face by. So, yeah, she's a stud. She just kind of jumped on board with us with our Fins and Feathers, which is the other business that I started back in 2015, where we take people on different hunting and fishing adventures. And she grew up hunting and fishing, and she's starting to get more into that side of living, and obviously she knows the benefits of wild game meat and all that stuff. So it is cool to start doing more trips with her, and it's cool to see that coming out. And there's a lot of people in today's society that are steering away from it, even though they know that it's good, and they know that it's, healthy and it's better for us. But there's just so many people that don't like it. And it's, it's kind of a bummer that people kind of have to shelter from it. And it's like, hunting's not a bad thing. Fishing's not a bad thing. Living off the land is not a bad thing if it's all done properly. And so I think it's cool that she's open to it and she's posting about it. It was a tough thing for me in the beginning when I first started fighting. I had people telling me like, I wouldn't post that, I wouldn't share that. And it's like, sorry, man, this is me. I'm going to do it. If you don't like it, don't follow it. You don't need to see it, but this is my lifestyle. I think it's healthy. And I think this is the right way for me to do it. So this is what I'm going to do. So it's cool to see her doing that too. So I think Maycee all in all is a stud, and we're going to see her at the top here soon, I believe.
Yeah, you mentioned something interesting, and I think you were on the Cameron Haynes' podcast.
Yeah.
You were talking about, kind of the similarities in terms of, the mentality you have towards hunting versus the mentality you have towards fighting. And you kind of talked a little bit about the similarities there. I guess talk to me a little bit about that. Like, how do those two things kind of go together and help each other out?
Yeah, man, there's a couple. I mean, I think the major thing is nerves. I mean, obviously all the preparation that goes into a fight and then all the preparation that goes into a hunt. Like, I don't know if a lot of people realize what type of preparation goes into hunting. I think a lot of people just think you grab your bow and arrow and go out there and fling it and hopefully kill this animal. But it's like, you have to train like daily with that. Like, that's something that is very intricate and it's very detailed and very finicky. If you do one tiny little thing wrong, you screw up a miss or make a bad hit, which is something we don't ever want to do. So, the daily hours of practicing with your weapons, obviously being in shape. There's a lot of guys that they go out there in the field that are overweight, that are out of shape. They can't hike up to the top of the mountain, which typically is where the animals are. So you can't be a successful hunter if you can't get to where the animals are. So, those types of things. So the preparation, and then obviously the mindset, the nerve calming. When you've snuck, say you found a bull 200 yards away and it has no idea that you're there, and you're a big bull elk and you have your bow and arrow in hand and you sneak inside 40 yards, you had to take your boots off, and you're sneaking in your socks to be as quiet as possible. Every tiny little move matters. Me making sure the wind is in your face and not blowing at your back and to the animal because they're going to bust out. There's a ton of like little things when you start getting in what we call the red zone, and then when you have that animal and you're drawing your bow back and you're going through all the checklists that you've practiced for, years or however long to get to that point, and being able to calm that heart rate. There's a ton of similarities when you have that person that's finally standing in front of you that you just trained an entire training camp for, and this is the go time. This is that red zone. I'm standing across from Eddie, who's towing the line right in front of me, an arm's length away, and I got to calm my nerves and stay calm, collected, and basically think about and checklist all the stuff that we've game planned up till that moment. Same thing when you have that bull and you're at full draw. If you screw up, you're going to shoot right over his back or miss him or hit him bad or whatever. So there's a ton of things in those two senses that are very similar in my mind. And I think they kind of feed off each other. Like if I can control that when I have Eddie standing in front of me or whoever, and you get through that, it makes you better for that situation when that bull's standing right there. I've been in this feeling before. Like I felt this. I know what to do. And it kind of comes second nature, I think. So I think they bounce off each other for sure. Like, being able to calm your nerves and basically tell yourself what you need to do, all the preparation leading to it that's going to get you into that position, doing the right things. Tons of similarities.
Last question for me, man. What can fans expect when they watch your fight against Eddie Alvarez? Obviously, a lot of people are anticipating this to be a banger, man. I guess, what can we expect on the 29th?
Man, I'm honestly hoping to go out there and get a big knockout. Obviously Eddie is a guy that's been at the top of the top and has been in the sport for a long time. He has great boxing, but I know that my, compact style, quick and explosive in and outs, I know that I can do this. So that's my plan in my mind. Obviously it's the fight game, anything goes, but that's where I'm thinking, bro. I'm getting in there. I'm getting a big knockout.
Absolutely. Well, hey, before we wrap things up here, I'll give you the final word to shout out your sponsors. I know you got some businesses you're working with too. I'll give you the final word there, man.
Nice. If anything, just some of my own businesses. We got Fins and Feathers, the provider, American Nama Beef, Chris Cut Tree Service. I just talked about on another one where we just started a big tree service here in Northern California with all these huge storms recently and all the big fire danger. So just been busting that crew out and getting in there and taking care of a bunch of fire danger and tree down. So man, we got a lot of stuff going on, hands on a lot of different things, but life is good and we're rolling along. So thank you guys. I appreciate it.
No doubt about it. Well, hey, Chad, it was great to meet you. Great to chat with you. All the best with these final few weeks of camp, and I'm sure we'll chat again soon, man. Thank you so much for the time.
Awesome. Take care.